Welcome to Almost Here, Round the Corner Future Technology podcast with Richard Jacobs. Future technologies poised to transform our lives for better or worse are the focus of this podcast. Almost here means these technologies are now here and starting to be used, or just around the corner, from Bitcoin to artificial intelligence, 3D printing, blockchain, virtual reality, and more.
Hi, this is Richard Jacobs with Future Tech Podcast. Today I have a great guest, David Orban, the founder and chair of Network Society Ventures. David, how are you doing?
I'm very well.
Yeah, thanks for taking the time. I know David's also a faculty member at Singularity University. And when we talk to people of that caliber that are associated with Singularity University, they have many, many interests. So we always have to focus just on one. So today, we'll talk about the Network Ventures activities. So, David, tell listeners, what do you do at Network Ventures? What's the goal of the company there?
Network Society Ventures is an early stage, seed stage venture capital investment firm. We focus on the intersection of exponential technologies and decentralized networks. And maybe it is worth unpacking already what that means.
Right. Yeah. What is an exponential technology versus a regular one, and what's a decentralized network versus a regular one?
Definitely. From a certain point of view, many technologies exhibit exponential nature in the way they transform the industries where they are applied, the economic opportunities that they represent. And what it really means, as opposed to linear technologies, is that they develop in a given period of time with some multiplier. So, for example, they will double every 18 months. And this is the feature of Moore's law that applies in computer chips and has been true for the past 50 years, a kind of self-fulfilling prophecy that engineers and teams and companies, corporations all over the world made sure would hold. And the consequence of that specifically is our ability today of literally having supercomputers in our pockets.
Right, comparatively.
And computers that we call our mobile phones are not the end point of this evolution, but technologies keep getting better and better at an accelerating pace. And today, we see exponential technologies in health, energy, in manufacturing, even in finance. Now, the other part, decentralized networks, it is the consequence of the thought process, the reasoning, the type of analysis that I've made in these past years, almost a decade now, having been involved with Singularity University since the beginning. I asked myself, if it is true and we want to take it for granted that exponential technologies are having such an impact, what is the consequence of that? What are the implications? And my hypothesis was that while it was definitely the case for the past few hundred years that centralized and hierarchical organizations were the best way to allocate resources, organize labor, implement ideas throughout a given enterprise, today, as a consequence of the changes that we see around us, there should come a new type of organization that is organized in a network, decentralized, is distributed globally, and which can potentially outcompete in terms of efficiency, in terms of resilience, in terms of adaptability, the previous ones. And maybe I can give you some examples of what I mean that will illustrate well across various technologies what we are talking about here.
Yeah, if you can combine the examples, that's great. If not, what's an exponential company that's out there or technology, and what's a decentralized one that you think is operating really efficiently?
So rather than or not necessarily naming specific startups, what I want is to illustrate uncorrelated industries where these changes are happening. Let's take energy, for example. If you look at the type of investment that is necessary to set up a carbon-based plant or an oil or a gas plant, those are very, very big investments that need decades, literally, to generate the necessary return. They also require the coordination of entire states and very important policy decisions as well. Now, opposed to that, we can look at type of decisions behind solar photovoltaics, where you can have a small business deciding that they want to put on photovoltaic panels on their roofs, or individual households who are picking up the phone, calling up Solar City, maybe in California and elsewhere, and saying, hey, what's the deal? How can I finance the installation of a solar panel for my house? And so on and so forth. Individual decisions adding up until the accelerating pace of renewable deployments cuts through a threshold, and they become visible to everybody, and they capture larger and larger percentages of energy generation, and they change the rules of the game. The same is happening in manufacturing with 3D printing, in health with wearables and personalized health, in the field of finance with blockchain, and many, many others. And so what is important to observe is that the dynamic is similar. There is almost a kind of a phase transformation in our socio-economic organization as a consequence of what is happening. But even though there is a similarity, energy, manufacturing, health, finance, and other sectors are not correlated. They are independently going through the same type of changes. And this makes it appear as an unstoppable historical shift. It is not a happenstance. It is not somebody, it is not a fashion, but it is a very fundamental change in how we organize society and our economic life.
So how do companies that are decentralized come together to have widespread adoption if they're decentralized? It seems that opposition that is not a main driving force or a driving force we can see. And it has to come from many different people in different spots that, how can it make any progress? So how do you see, what are the strengths of these type of companies, and, how do they, again, gain widespread adoption? How do they function being decentralized?
Well, many platforms that we are seeing today have gained incredible power, not because they themselves are huge, but because there is an incredibly widespread participation and adoption of the principles that they represent. One of my favorite examples is GitHub. GitHub is a platform for storing and collaborating on source code for software projects. And GitHub has millions of users, coders, and they are everywhere in the world. It doesn't matter. They don't have to be together. And GitHub is now so powerful that Google and Microsoft have both given up on their independent software source code repository project because they just recognized that they didn't need to reinvent the wheel. They could just rely on this new piece of global infrastructure that has been built. So the new type of organizations that are based on these technologies gain power not by the force of their own management or workforce only, but much more importantly by the active, passionate, and proactive participation of their users. That this manifests itself both in the relative small number of people employed by these organizations in proportion to their impact, but also with how vehemently users react when some change in the terms of service or privacy policy or other kinds of components of the governance of the platform is introduced without proper consultation, without taking into account a broader set of stakeholders that traditionally would not be involved, they would not be consulted.
So, for instance, with GitHub, who runs it and how does it evolve? What have you seen it do over time? How does it make decisions?
So definitely the changes that we are seeing towards this new kind of organization is not complete yet. All kinds of infrastructures are still being built to deliver the full power of decentralized networks, and the implications are not only economic, but also in terms of our relationship with centralized social organizations, i.e. the nation state and the government, needs to be fully understood, and we are not there yet. However, it is evident that this kind of transformation is sorely needed. Last year, there have been, or 2 years ago, and then last year again, during winter, both times, there have been coordinated attacks that have not been, sufficiently chronicled and described in mainstream media against the electric grid of Ukraine. The electric grid was brought down by these attacks, leaving hundreds of thousands of people without electricity for days in winter. And the attacks were sophisticated enough that they took out the cell towers, the mobile communication system as well. So people had even a hard time alerting the repair crews that they were without electricity. As a consequence of these attacks, the Minister of Energy of China declared that building a decentralized electric grid is a question of national security for China. So it is going to be still some time until we fully understand what the implications are. But we do have indications already in what the shape of these new planet-wide infrastructures are going to be. also in what the first tests of smart contracts coupled with the Internet of Things in the blockchain are now showing us barely glimpses of what is becoming possible.
Well, before we get, well, it may not be even far afield. So, can you talk about some of the investments that you've made as a venture capitalist that you're most excited about? You know, what that encapsulate these elements, decentralization and exponential tech. Any favorites that you want to talk about?
Well, there are an entire portfolio of investments that our listeners can check out on our website, netsoc.vc, netsoc.vc. And many of these come through Singularity University, where we have an accelerator in SU Labs. And the companies that come out of the accelerator are amazing. I would mention one that is literally out of this world, and it is Matternet. Matternet designed, produced, and delivered on the International Space Station a 3D printer that works in microgravity or zero gravity. Contrary to those printers that we use here on Earth that need gravity to have them working. And already this printer is working on the International Space Station, allowing NASA to literally beam up spare parts or some kind of component that needs to be used, and rather than delivering it physically, just its design can be delivered, and then it can be manufactured in space. So the promise of this is obviously gigantic. There are other companies that are concentrating already on resources that we can find in space. Asteroids that are in specific orbits that are not very far from Earth, or periodically they come pretty close to Earth. And rather than seeing them as we would traditionally see them as a menace, we can see them as an opportunity, as a resource. Bringing those asteroids in orbits around Earth enables us to mine them and then build the next generation of heavy industry right there in space, potentially, since we also have incredible energy sources, the sun in space right there, allowing us to migrate industries in space, freeing up the planet to those activities that are intrinsically more sustainable and less polluting, but also avoiding the need of delivering large amounts of mass from Earth to space. And this is going to be a development for literally the next hundreds of years, but we can see the glimpses of it today, and those glimpses, those early indications of the incredible things that we will be able to do come thanks to these companies that come out of Singularity University, like Matternet.
Well, quick question: what's the intensity of sun once you're beyond the Earth's atmosphere in space? You know, in a low orbit versus on Earth on the surface. How much more energy did you see from the sun?
Well, the intensity of the radiation is going to be unfiltered by the atmosphere. So there is that kind of gain a priori. Also, you can position your solar panels so that they receive light 24 hours a day because you don't need to be shielded by Earth. And so there's that gain as well. Also, the area that is occupied by the panels can be arbitrarily large. It only depends on how many panels you can manufacture and then maintain in good shape. And it is really already, just if we take into account sun that reaches the surface of Earth, we have any day more energy reaching us than not what our current levels of use for the entire civilization need for 1,000 years or more, right? So